Well, Jim, that's a pretty interesting autograph you just put up. That's Truman Capote, who, when he was alive, was also very difficult to get to. But it's a spectacular autograph.
Thank you very much. I got that when my sister-in-law, her best friend was Dan Rowan of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, was his private secretary. And we were invited on set. And once again, it was a very close set. And so anyone there must be someone who belongs there. So I could go back into the green room and sit down there and just hang out. And there was Truman Capote. The funny thing is, one of my remembrances is little red nostril hairs. You know, it's very funny how when you meet different celebrities, there's like something you kind of remember about it. But very nice man, very little guy. As we know, he wrote In Cold Blood that later became the movie with Robert Blake. And he was the guy, the author of Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yes,
so it's
spectacular.
quite a career, and what a wonderful wonderful guy. Some of the other autographs on this wall were just got on slips of paper, whether it was Muhammad Ali or Charlton Heston or Warren Beatty. I worked on Bugsy a few years back, the show that he met Annette Bening on.
Right.
This was on the set of Bugsy. He'd drive in the morning with his hair wet and washed back in his little Mercedes, and then they'd make him look like Bugsy Siegel. And I drove my 1940 Coupe Deluxe Ford in the movie. It's actually featured 10 minutes in when Warren Beatty is coming out from the East Coast and he's on the train with Elliott Gould, and then they throw Elliott Gould off the train. The next scene is a wide shot of Union Station, and you see about an 8-second scene where a nice green 40 Ford drives through frame. That's me, and that's my car. While on the set, we were there for about a week or so down at Union Station, and one of the props in the movie was Warren Beatty sitting in the cafeteria reading a newspaper about himself. So when it was done, I picked up a copy of the prop newspaper. Bill Murray saw him in New York, and he asked where I was from, and I said California, so he wrote, "Jim, drive carefully, Bill Murray." So part of the fun of collecting the individual sheets of paper, which was kind of the original way of collecting autographs, was then for me is to find a photograph. But kind of the way autograph collecting all started was back in the 50s,
Actually,
60s,
in
and
the
70s.
30s, when
In the
these
30s
books
they had
were
these?
started, yes.
And Dale Robertson and Emmett Kelly, the New Christie Minstrels, and you'd go through Ed Big Daddy Roth. And some people would have things, Buddy Ebsen from
The original Wizard of Oz.
the original Wizard of Oz, and then it was the Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes, but
was
Buddy
famous for
got
that.
sick, and of course Jack Haley doesn't get the part as the Tin Man.
It's funny how something like that can happen. Anyway, as a kid growing up, I had my collection of little autograph books. And then once you collected autographs for a while and would put them with photos, part of the fun for me was to find the right photo to put it with. And I'd have like individual collections, and I'd have like the original Christopher Reeves, original Superman, and Margot Kidder, the original Lois Lane, and then later comes along the Lois
Dean Cain.
Dean Cain and
But I started before you. I'm quite a bit older than you. The original Superman was first Kirk Alyn, and then George Reeves.
George Reeves on
Then
that.
your age group
Then kicked
came
in
in
with
with the Christopher
with
Reeve.
Christopher Reeves, and then so collecting things, whether it's Chuck Berry or just lots and lots of autographs. Some you can read, and in the old days, it seemed like when I first started collecting autographs, people signed names that you could actually read.
Well, they were proud of their signatures. Now there's so many collectors that they just rush it through. Well, I started before you back in the 40s, and I started with the little books as well, and I was strictly a collector. I wouldn't sell anything. It was, just to have it. Then when I went into the Army in 1950, I took a class, because of my autograph collecting, I took a class in handwriting authentication. And that spurred me on to further collecting. And when I did get out of the Army and working at the studios, everybody that came into my office to sign their contract, out came my little book, and I'd have them sign that. Then subsequently I took every class on authentication that you could, or autograph collecting that was available, and it developed into a business. When Four Star Productions closed in 1968, needing some money at that time, I started to sell off my collection. Knowing a lot of actors, I made deals with them to sell their autograph photos for them. Thus, I developed into Heroes and Legends, which has been a very prominent company for me since 1968.
Well, I wasn't right at 68. It was probably in the 70s or 80s when I first met you at one of the autograph shows. And there's a lot of dealers like you that have all the different products for sale. Some sell the individual autograph, others have the signed 8x10 glossies, others have some sort of memorabilia that people collect. But it went from the individual sheets to the 8x10 glossies, and
Correct.
here's like a Drew Barrymore or a John Travolta, and it's kind of fun to have their signature on, whether it's
On a
Grease
nice
or
photo.
something. His wife, Kelly Preston. Silverstone, Alicia. Jane Fonda, it's very funny. There's these old kind of cheesecake pictures of her, and then I also have her with John Voight for Coming Home.
Think back to Barbarella. She really was a cheesecake gal
Yes,
at
that
that
is
time.
true. Steve Martin, one of my favorite comedians. Dakota Fanning. And once again, when you get them at different times in their life, they're signing their name very differently too.
Correct. When Kevin Costner started his autograph signing, he started with a beautiful signature, and then little by little, now he signs K line.
I see a lot of K lines.
Right.
I have one where he signed it with Clint Eastwood.
When you started signing with these people, you would develop a signature, and then over the years, their signatures would change. And this goes back way before the Kevin Costner, from a beautiful, proud signature to K line, because so many people were asking him for autographs. He just wanted to get it over with quickly. Most celebrities, and certainly Hollywood celebrities, don't mind signing autographs depending on the situation they're in or where they
Right,
are.
right.
Bother them while they're eating in a restaurant, and they're get upset.
Yes.
But you know, if you meet them in a normal situation, standing in a line for a movie, they will sign for you.
You can
But,
almost, I find, sorry to interrupt, I find that if you pick your times appropriately and maybe wait till they exit a place, or you wait for them around the corner or something, where it'll be easier to approach them and they'll probably be more comfortable signing an autograph. And I also find that sometimes it's who is asking for it or what the situation is. If I am in the Directors Guild and I happen to see an Oliver Stone, he's more likely to sign me a nice autograph. Here with Kevin Costner, Jim, see you at the movies, and once again, it's probably one of his better autographs. And then Clint Eastwood, once again, one of his better autographs. He has a tendency to
scribble.
now, and then you've got other people that are reducing their autographs to a smear. On the wall here I have Pulp Fiction, and then you have Quentin Tarantino, and I'm glad he wrote, "What's your name?" and I said Jim, and he said, "To Jim, Quentin Tarantino." And it's almost nice to have the "To Jim," or in this case with Kevin Costner, to have "See You at the Movies," because that, to me, kind of authenticates it more. And as I think I've heard you mention, the idea of the more the pen touches the paper, the better it is. Because
Absolutely.
someone could maybe learn to do a Babe Ruth, but you wouldn't know how Babe Ruth would say hello to the wife and kids or something like that.
Right. You are correct.
I think it was 1991. I was at the Paris Jazz Festival, and Miriam Makeba and Dizzy Gillespie were going to perform.
Wow.
So we went out there, and I stood at we were talking about showing respect, so I stood at the, where the security guard was, and I had a piece of paper, or I had the program from the event, and I said, could I send this back to maybe get Dizzy Gillespie's autograph? And the security guy, because I spoke English and the people back in the tent were speaking English, why don't you go back and get it yourself? So I walked back and wound up sitting down and being welcomed, because his people are from North Hollywood, and I know some people who knew people. And I wound up personally pouring Dizzy Gillespie a half bottle of red wine
Wow,
before
nice.
he went on. And what's very funny is on stage you'd see Dizzy Gillespie and Miriam Makeba, and they'd banter and they'd be, chummy, personal banter back and forth. Before the show and after the show, they weren't anywhere near each other. They got together, they did their thing, and then they went their separate ways. But this is Miriam Makeba and then Dizzy Gillespie, and then it was a year or two later, I'm not sure exactly when he passed away. I had a French friend, Hervé, who shot the picture of me with Dizzy. In addition to getting what you mentioned about having autographs to kind of prove you met them, I have a wall that we'll probably look at later of photo ops, whether it's with Evel Knievel or Ronald Reagan or Charlton Heston. I mean, it's kind of fun to have your picture taken with them too, although sometimes they age better than you do.
That's true. That's a super piece, especially to me because I was a trumpet player.
Okay.
So when I originally started my collection, I was starting with all the different trumpet players. And that was a hassle in New York because getting to these various places where they were expensive for a poor boy, which is what I was back then. But it was great meeting them and, chatting with them. And but that developed. And in California, I came out here in 1960, and I subsequently joined most of the organizations, AFI, SAG, and ultimately the Motion Picture Council. And as a member of the council, I would meet many, many celebrities and always ask for an autograph.
What I have found in collecting autographs, whether it was Jimmy Durante or spending the evening with Barry Maguire, who sang Eve of Destruction, wound up, I was taking livestock in the 4-H and FFA to the Del Mar Fair, and you'd wind up hanging out there, and then you'd see Andy Williams doing a show and get his autograph, and then we'd all go over to the beach and have a barbecue, and it was like all of a sudden you were accepted as part of the entourage, but the group. And it was back when autograph collecting was a fan showing respect and wanting an autograph, where today it seems to have turned more into a very commercial business.
Very definitely.
I worked for many years, I think I mentioned, with Dolly Parton. That brings us to another genre, which is record albums. I was working on a TV commercial for her, Dollywood, back in 2000. And asked her to sign this 9 to 5, and she wrote 2/22/2000. She goes, "Oh, I love that number. I'm going to write that all day today." So anyway, Dolly Parton, I was lucky enough to work for many years, so I have Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I have, Rhinestone Cowboy, all the different stuff done by her.
People call me all the time. But you got to remember, I've been in business almost 50 years now, and so we do get phone calls from other dealers or people themselves, and very interesting, sometimes from celebrities who want to know if you have their some memorabilia for now. Yes, absolutely, and they would or would want a piece, because back then the celebrities didn't collect their stuff, and they desperately want it now. But yeah, customers will call up and they'd have a great band. At the time they were young and they couldn't afford it. Today they're making decent money and they say, "Oh, I grew up to CSNY, Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. What have you got? I want one."
Well, what they also do is, it turns out, and it seems like whether it's Willie Nelson or Waylon Jennings, is you can then frame these and put them on your wall as artwork. And speaking of artwork, here's Joni Mitchell, who did the cover for a Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young album, and then I got her to sign it also. So to have like the artwork re-signed.
If I can recap a minute on something we talked about before. Getting an autograph photo is nice, but when I was collecting, I loved the clip signatures, because you could search for the right photo, the picture that meant something to you, mat it like you did up here on the wall with the right picture. So now you didn't just have the celebrity, you had the celebrity with your favorite film or with your whatever.
No, I understand, but it's sort of like, I have Tom Berenger, who is a friend from New York. In fact, I knew him when he was an airline steward for Eastern Airlines, flying to Puerto Rico. But he signs me a nice autograph. But you know him from Sniper.
From Sniper,
and
right.
he was nominated for the Academy Award for Platoon. So it depends on what movie. I think it's nice to have Quentin Tarantino's on Pulp Fiction, because He may do a lot of other movies, but I kind of see that as one of the iconic ones. Here's one. It was funny. When I went to school, I went to Art Center when it was on 3rd Street in kind of the Rossmore area. And I used to go up and go to CBS or whatever and go and watch the TV shows, whether Bill Cosby Show or All in the Family or Sonny and Cher, and I would get their autographs. And I remember originally getting their autograph here where he wrote, "Love Sonny," and put an ampersand and then handed it to Cher to sign. And I did that with, I think it was Melissa Gilbert when she was with
Little House on the Prairie.
Who was she married to? Or she's still married to him?
Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah, Little House on the Prairie. Also the president of the Screen Actors Guild, I think. But she signed her autograph and then would hand it to her and have her husband of the time, maybe they're still together, sign the autograph. And sometimes to get them together is kind of fun. I'll go grab Karen and Richard Carpenter on the same sheet of paper. That's kind of cool.
There are some that I'll go up to and try to get an autograph, and they say, perfect example, Buzz Aldrin. The Buzz Aldrin charges $175 an autograph at the shows, although he will sign his books free. But we were at a West Point reunion, and there were about 200 people there, husbands and wives, a couple of generals, but 5 of us walked up to him with the program and asked him to sign, and he said, "I don't sign autographs." What do you do? What do you say?
No.
You just say thank you and go back to your seat.
It's very funny what happens. About a year ago, I was at Christy Alley's party for her Organic Liaison, I think it's called. And who did I sit on the couch with the whole evening? Buzz Aldrin and his wife, which I guess within 6 months he had divorced.
Divorced, yes.
And she kept referring to herself as a Buzzette.
Oh, cute.
But he was very nice and had a lovely evening, and he gave me his business card and all, but I didn't ask for his autograph. That was an example of a time where it didn't seem appropriate to ask for the autograph. I was going to later when it was appropriate, and then the whole evening passed, but never got around to getting an autograph because it never seemed quite appropriate. And having pictures taken can be fun too, and I was recently on a TV show called The Burn with Jeffrey Ross, and he came out and was taking some shots, and he does one of those nice things where he's pointing to you, and it seems to be celebrities have a habit of when they're having their picture taken with you, they put their arm around you and they point to you like you're the biggest thing, which is always very nice.
Yes,
I was talking about Karen and Richard Carpenter, who once again are less known today, but set a whole genre of music and were the biggest selling group in the 70s, which I find almost impossible to believe, but it was on Richard's website, so it must be true.
Absolutely.
But what's interesting is to get Karen and Richard on the same sheet of paper, which I kind of liked that. And if you don't know...
And again, you pick the photo that you like.
Pick the photo I like to go with it. And in many cases, you know, that's one of the keys to it. One of the stories I heard is that John Wayne was one of the first celebrities, I understand, to have an auto pen, and he'd take his 3x5 cards and put them under his auto pen and keep a stack in his pocket. So if some fan came up and said, "Can I have your autograph, Mr. Wayne?" he'd reach in his pocket and goes, "Here, I just signed this."
Interesting that you say that, because at various shows, people will walk up to me, and because I will give them a free verbal appraisal at a show. If they need a written document, I do charge. But for a verbal appraisal, I do. And what happens is they will have a letter from a celebrity, and they'll say, "Oh, I've got this letter signed by so-and-so," and I look at it. And generally I could, you know, I've been doing this for so many years. If I see Clark Gable, I know that his C never, ever connects with his L. So he'd have that, and then his Gable is a separate word too. John Wayne, as you mentioned, after his loopy J, he comes and he signs the O from the bottom. What I liked about John Wayne is he always made the loop with the J, and then he always signed his O from the bottom up, so it looks like it's doubled. And that's a standard with his. If that doesn't have that doubled O, forget it. It was signed by his secretary. Another thing people don't realize today, and I do a lot of authentication, people think they're going to send a letter to Tom Cruise and he's going to send back a signed Tom Cruise. He couldn't possibly do that. He'd be signing thousands of autographs every day. So his secretary signs them.
This authentication or people checking to see whether it was a secretarial signature or whatever, It's funny, when I did a TV commercial at the Fox Plaza with Ronald Reagan, and it was for Pete Wilson when he was running for senator, and I also worked with Charlton Heston on that. But at the end of the day, and Ronald Reagan was the most gregarious and wonderful, friendly man, he said, "Is there anything else? Let's take some pictures." And we stood around and took the obligatory pictures. And I said, "My parents' 50th wedding anniversary is coming up. Would you be willing to do a video greeting to them?" He goes, "Oh, sure." So I have a little video that maybe you'll be able to show here that says, "Hello, Norma. Hello, Dale. I want to wish you a happy 50th wedding anniversary."
Hello, Norma. Hello, Dale. I want to take this opportunity to wish you a very happy 50th wedding anniversary. Congratulations, and God bless.
Are you ready, Mr. Reagan?
Yep.
And action, please.
Hello, Norma. Hello, Dale. I want to take this opportunity to wish you a very happy 50th wedding anniversary. Congratulations, and God bless.
And cut. And I played it at their 50th wedding anniversary 23 years ago. And because that was back in the time of VHS, I couldn't press repeat, so I looped it. So you can then hear me saying, "Are you ready, Mr. Reagan?" and him going, "Yup," which makes it even more
nicer.
fun.
Absolutely.
But what's funny is they then took the tape that I'd shot that with and held it. And it was about a week later that in the mail, in an envelope that didn't have a postage stamp on it, it said the office of Ronald Reagan. No postage for ex-presidents. So it arrived, and I guess the deal was they were checking to make sure my mom and dad names were Norma and Dale, because they didn't want it to be a Hillary Clinton signing
Right.
a Lewinsky book. And I guess I panned out. By the time I got downstairs, the guy I was working for the Pete Wilson campaign said, "They've already called. Did you have the nerve to ask Ronald Reagan for his video greeting to your parents?" "It's my dad's birthday next week. I wish I'd had you ask for his birthday greeting." So anyway, it's one of those things to be on your toes and take advantage of an opportunity if it's appropriate. As I said, Ronald Reagan could have said, "No, I can't do that, but thank you for asking," because at that very same time, within a matter of a year, front or back, he was paid $10 million by the Japanese to do a 10 or 20-minute speech in Japan. It is a little ironic that the President of the United States doesn't need stamps, but they'll do a postage stamp in their honor. I got to work many years with Dolly Parton on her Dollywood in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, as well as then she built a Dolly Splash Country, which was a water theme park. And then she also had her Dollywood Foundation, which gave books to children. And this was a nice poster she signed to me, calling herself the Madam. In 1988, when I was still doing advertising, I did the advertising for the Gene Autry Western Heritage Museum when they opened it. So in 1988, was invited to the premiere opening of the museum and was lucky enough to meet Gene Autry and get his autograph on the program. There was also a big write-up in the LA Times magazine that week. When I was going to Art Center there in the Rossmore area, they were filming everything you wanted to know about sex but were afraid to ask just a few blocks away. So at lunch break I went over and was standing around, and Woody Allen was nice enough to let me look through the viewfinder. I heard an interesting story that Woody Allen relies heavily on his cinematographers and virtually never looks through the eyepiece. He just knows what he wants and he describes it to his cinematographer. And so he's not one who looks through the viewfinder, but he was nice enough to invite me too. I was a big fan of Life is Hell, and it was being published at that time, or a little bit before this time. And this was a Matt signed calendar, Life is Hell, and then here is his Life is Hell booklet, and he was nice enough to do Life in Hell in 3D. Once again, this was prior to The Simpsons, which I guess skyrocketed him, and also with James L. Brooks, who worked with him doing The Simpsons. In 1993, I was still directing and producing TV commercials, and I was hired to do one called Cycle Law. And we hired Evel Knievel, and he was nice enough to sign this Viva Knievel lobby card to me. It was kind of fun to have his leather jacket on with the illustration board holding up the collar, not unlike Elvis Presley, and the helmet that was in the box. I said, "What happened there?" And it looked like it had been held up to a band sander. And he said that was the helmet he wore when he jumped across the water at Caesar's Palace. Hayley Mills signing her full 5-name autograph.
Wow.
And I have her little card. I've gotten Hayley Mills, and she signs a lot of autographs. And guys my age all loved her in the original Parent Trap and all that. But I was doing my research. When I'm going to meet someone or have the opportunity to meet someone, I usually do a little Google search.
Right.
And it turned out she has 5 names. So when I met her, I said, "Ms. Mills, may I have your autograph? Would you mind signing your entire name?" And she smiled and she signed it and she said, "I've never been asked and I don't remember ever signing my entire name." So it may
Wow.
be unique in its own way. Let me show it to you. And here's Hayley Mills' full name and autograph, and she even signed it with an exclamation mark.
Now, I've met her a dozen times. I never knew that. So,
But it's amazing.
even after all this time, I can learn something every day.
I was lucky enough to be invited to be on the set on December 20th, 1982, which was the final show of the iconic series MASH. My copywriter at the ad agency, Doyle Dane Bernbach, was the roommate of Thad Mumford, who was one of the producers the last few years of the show. So we were on set over at Fox, and normally Alan Alda was famous for not signing autographs, but when you're directing the show and it's the last day on the set, he could no longer say "another time." And this script was hand-typed by the producer, Thad Mumford, and at the end of it, instead of signing "end of show," he wrote "end of series." And inside here, I also have the 2 producers' signatures. This was the pilot script for the show The Sopranos, and now that James has died, it probably has become a little more valuable piece. The pilot film was shot by David Cates, the director and the creator of the show, and then I think it was over a year later before the show got picked up. So the difference between the pilot show where the kids were kids and the first episode where the kids were teenagers is quite a jump if you happen to see them back to back. I didn't collect this one. This one I got from an auction at the Beverly Hills, and I see it advertised on the internet. I have people who don't like that I have an O.J. Simpson autograph hanging on my wall. I moved it from the hallway into my office because it seemed to offend people. But I tell them I would have asked Adolf Hitler for his autograph.
Well, I wouldn't have asked Hitler.
Oh, yeah.
But Simpson still is a Heisman Trophy.
Okay. But I had him sign it. And then I also had Larry Schiller, I think his name is, who wrote the book American Tragedy. And I was in the courtroom over in Santa Monica, and they didn't allow cameras in, so Linda Breakstone and different people would interview after the court hearing. And I asked him to sign it, and he says, "Do you mind if we step outside? I don't want to sign it in front of O.J." I asked O.J. for his autograph, and he signed it, "Peace to you, Jim," which I think means he's not going to kill me. And then second, I said, "Do you mind dating it?" And he goes, "I don't know what date it is." And back in that day, I was carrying a pager, so I pulled out my pager, and he saw it was 1/13/97. In the 1960s, I went to Disneyland for my birthday. We'd go halfway between my brother's birthday and my birthday. So we went in November, and the day we went, Walt Disney was opening up Swiss Family Robinson, or Swiss Family Treehouse. And I was lucky enough to say hello to him. I asked him for his autograph, and he gave me this autograph. The Walt looks pretty much like Walt Disney. The Disney doesn't look like what you see on TV, but I swear this is Walt Disney's autograph. I got into the Directors Guild in 1984, and then in 1986, they celebrated their 50th anniversary, and they put out this limited signed poster. And if you look at it, maybe you can make out Woody Allen or Taylor Hackford, Martin Scorsese, Milos Forman, Norman Jewison, Barry Levinson, Bob Fosse, Gilbert Cates. When I was still at Doyle Dane Bernbach, we did some commercials, and this one we got Gregory Peck to do for the Tree People. And we went up on the top of Mulholland Drive there where the Tree People have their place, and we shot a nice Tree People commercial. Gregory Peck showed up in his Mercedes convertible with his little three-legged German Shepherd. And at the end of the shoot, he wrote a check to the Tree People, which was real nice. I got a 1963 lobby card from To Kill a Mockingbird to have him sign, and my copyright partner, Peter Brown, got Boys from Brazil to have him sign. That was his favorite. And then later, a good friend of mine, Gennaro Montanino, went to school with John Badham, the director who directed Bird on a Wire and all sorts of stuff. His sister is Mary Badham, the little girl from To Kill a Mockingbird, so I had her sign the lobby card also. You can't always tell a real signature. Even my Walt Disney doesn't look like you see in the movies. Here's one of my photo op walls in my office. This is a picture I took actually of the Hollywood sign when I lived up on Cahuenga in Hollywood, and it was just a couple of weeks before the original Hollywood sign blew down. I think it was KRLA or some radio station was doing a promo, and they lit it up that night. I went and took my pictures, and a couple of weeks later, been blown down. There's some of my Academy of Television Arts and Sciences cards and Directors Guild cards over the years. Here's, as I mentioned, one of the first autographs I collected from Don Amici. Here I am many years forward working with Evel Knievel on Cycle Law. In Connecticut with Bill Clinton, in fact, here's the card to the ticket to that event. Remarks by President Clinton at the Rich Forum in Stamford, Connecticut. And that's Wolf Blitzer's autograph. And I got Wolf, and I said, I don't think I'm going to get Bill Clinton's. I got to meet him, though, here. Working with King Kong Bundy, who fought Andre the Giant and others. Here I am with the jacket at the condo. I used to live in Culver City, and it was Orson Welles' jacket because we would excuse Orson early, and then I would go about being the hand model for the pours of the wine. And other little-known fact about Orson Welles is he didn't have buttons. His jackets and his shirts were Velcroed together. I think it was because of his fat fingers, but it was very interesting. Someone made the comment, it was Abdul, the tent maker, made his shirts because they were kind of a heavy canvasy material, and then the cuffs were held together with Velcro. We did do a shot one time where he had his hand up and they put in a button just so it would look natural. Working with Dolly Parton, doing some Hispanic commercials, King Kong Bundy again, Sandra Locke at a DGA event. They tell you when you do commercials, don't work with kids or animals. So the very first commercial I ever did had an elephant and a little kid in it. Magic Johnson, Drew Carey. This is the Cable Ace Awards. This was at the Oscar de la Hoya Foundation. Had an old car show with Jay Leno. Back at a black tie affair with George Foreman. Worked many years ago with Larry Elder, who now has gone on to write books and have other TV shows. And I saw him just recently where he was talking down in Orange County. Here I am with Tom Berenger, a very young Tom Berenger. He was an aspiring actor at this time, but also was an airline steward, I believe, for Eastern Airlines flying to Puerto Rico out of New York. And that's his firstborn, and my ex-wife is his firstborn's godmother. This was the commercial with the kid, but before we had an elephant, I sat in to make sure the elephant wasn't going to come through the wall. Here I am, a body double for Joe Penny. Here I am attacking Justine Bateman, and you'll see a knife to her throat here. They retouched out the knife. Poster I did, that is an 8x10 Polaroid. And I doubt if you recognize the girl, but if you saw Apocalypse Now, she's the one who stepped off of the helicopter up in, I think it was Cambodia, with the pistols blazing. And we then did a Porsche shoot with her. Radio show icon Shotgun Tom Gelly was nice enough to give me an award in 2010 as Publicist of the Year. He got his star on Hollywood Walk of Fame. Here I am with Larry Kasdan, back when he was my copywriter at the agency, Jimmy Durante. Here I am directing Charlton Heston in a Pete Wilson commercial. He had a very good voice, but we had to have a breath track because he was wheezing so much because he had emphysema. So he would inhale like that. So we had to not totally eliminate it, but we had to make it much less. And he was rather hefty here. Here is John Belushi. Picture is from Animal House, but the autograph was from the 1942 movie premiere in Hollywood. Went to a 1978 show at, I think it was the Doolittle Theater up on Vine Street in Hollywood, where Andy Kaufman was doing a one-man show. At that time, he was, I think, on Taxi right then, but I had visited the set of Taxi. And he did this one-man show, and he did about an hour and a half, 2 hours of comedy. And in the middle of the show, he showed milk and cookies. He said if we were a good audience, that he would have us come for milk and cookies. And everybody laughed, and then he went on with the rest of his show. And then at the very end, everyone applauded, and the show was over. And then he came out in a white terry cloth robe, I remember, and he said, you know, I've always wanted to appear on the same stage with the Radio City Rockettes. And a spotlight went over in the corner of the theater on the curtain, and everybody laughed and chuckled. And then all of a sudden, out came the Rockettes, kicking away, and they all went back behind the drape. And he said, you know, I've always wanted to appear on the same stage with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And a big spotlight on the middle of the theater curtain, and everybody laughed. And the curtains opened up, and hallelujah, hallelujah, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir sang a song. Curtains closed back up. He said, you know, I've always wanted to appear on the same stage with Santa Claus, his reindeer, in the snow. Everybody laughed. Snow started coming down. Out came Santa Claus, out came the reindeer, and he finished the show, and he said, I bet you thought I forgot about the milk and cookies. There are buses waiting out front, and we all went out front, and there was a line of buses, and we got in, went over to the spaghetti factory around the corner in Hollywood, and there was Famous Amos handing a bag of chocolate chip cookies, and Robin Williams handing a carton of milk. At the end of the evening, he brought us back to the theater, and that was what we got for our $7 or $8 that night. Milos Forman made it into a wonderful movie called Man on the Moon, which was also a song by REM. So it was a wonderful landmark, creative, outrageous night, and they talked to Andy Kaufman about it, and he said, I didn't make a penny. Every penny he made on the show, he put into the performance art of it and the event. Quite a night.
I will say I happen to be one of the luckiest men alive today. This was a hobby, a fun thing. I had never had an intention of selling my autographs and making a living from it. But that's what I do, and this is why I will never retire. And here I am at the age of 80, still in the business and still enjoying it and meeting people and meeting celebrities all the time and just having a lot of fun with it. I happen to be members of all the autograph associations that are available, and I talk to hundreds of people who love autographs as I do. And it's a fun business, and it's a good business. And so how many people take their hobby and make a living from it? As I said, I'm a very lucky man.
I am just thrilled to be able to get my collection, or at least part of my collection, on videotape. People who come to the house always say, my God, it's like a mini museum. It's a shame it's not documented, or there should be a book written about it. And I'm thrilled to have Myron Ross here, who is held in such high esteem in the autograph business. And it reminds me, I go back and have old pictures of me with a different hairstyle, working with Orson Welles, and I pick up little props. This happens to be Orson Welles' cigar, and the day he showed up at the shoot, and you may see the video, he was a bit inebriated.
Turn camera.
Marked.
102, take one.
With overlap, action please. Action Orson, please.
You just do anything?
No, it's sorry, cut.
Right.
Yeah, rolling.
102, take two.
Ah, the French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul Masson, inspired by that same French excellence. It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best French champagne, it's vintage dated. So
Cut.
Paul Masson.
102, take 3.
Action, please.
Ah, the French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There is a California champagne by Paul Masson, inspired by that same French excellence. It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best French champagne, it's vintage dated. So
Cut.
Paul Masson.
Those kind of memories are memories I will treasure forever. I was lucky enough to get the to get the domain name jimsautograph.com, and until I sell these, I may just go ahead and see if I can put up a website that has many of my autographs, some of my stories, and share with the world, because there seems to be an interest. I get emails every day, or even phone calls from people saying, what was it like working with Orson Welles? Did you go to May Masson restaurant? Did you ever meet his dog? You know, the footage is amazing. We shot a commercial, and then we got the outtakes, and we were able to cut a commercial out of it.
The taste of French champagne has always been celebrated for its excellence. There's a California champagne by Paul Masson, inspired by that same French excellence. It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best French champagne, it's vintage dated. Paul Masson's superb taste shouldn't be too surprising. This champagne doesn't come from France, but it was created by a man who did, Paul Masson. Paul Masson will sell no wine before it's time.
To have people write me and they said, when you did that commercial 25, 30 years ago, did you think 1 million people would be watching it on YouTube? In the old days, a TV show or a commercial, it ran for a while and then it was gone forever. Now with the internet, everything's around for a long time. I expect to be around a long time, and I look forward to sharing my autograph collection with you and with others in the future. Thank you for watching. To steal from James Cagney, go ahead.
My mother thanks you, my father thanks you, my sister thanks you, and I thank you. And that is stolen from James Cagney.
Well, it seems to wrap it up properly.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Myron. I
Thank
really
you, Jim.
appreciate it.
My pleasure.